Taiwan widens investigations into people suspected of holding Chinese IDs, now targeting entertainers and influencers. Chinese forces come a little too close for comfort, putting Taiwan's military on high alert. Taiwan's government watchdog plans to challenge cuts to its budget at the country's top court. Plus,
Taiwan's Search and Rescue Force has welcomed 4 new joiners who can officially go out on missions. We find out who they are.
a warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Leslie Liao. Thank you for joining us. Taiwan is expanding its investigation into people suspected of holding both Taiwanese and Chinese ID cards. The campaign comes as Taipei ramps up efforts to stop Beijing's attempt to integrate Taiwan with China. Reese Ayers has more.
Entertainers and influencers will join military personnel, public servants and educators on a list of professions whose identities will be scrutinized by the Taiwanese government. Taiwan is looking for people who hold both Chinese and Taiwanese identity documents, and for those caught holding both, they'll have their Taiwanese ID revoked. This latest announcement regarding entertainers comes from Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council, which handles relations with China, after several Taiwanese influencers and artists were exposed for posting pro-unification messages on social media. And a Chinese influencer living in Taiwan had her residency revoked for the same reason. The suspicion is that some of these artists may have been recruited or otherwise influenced by the Chinese Communist Party in attempts to, as President Lai put it in a press conference last week, confuse Taiwan's national identity. And part of that recruitment process could involve coaxing people with wide spheres of influence to apply for Chinese IDs. Taiwan says it's all a part of a wider campaign by China to influence and infiltrate Taiwan through a range of means, bringing Beijing closer to its ultimate goal of taking control of Taiwan. The practice of revoking Taiwanese IDs isn't a new one. In an interview with the Liberty Times, Mainland Affairs Council Chairman Chiu Chui-zheng said that almost 700 people had had their Taiwanese identities revoked in the last decade after being discovered holding Chinese ID documents in accordance with the Cross-Strait Relations Act. But while not new, the scope of this most recent campaign does seem larger and more targeted, and will also investigate whether any of these artists have engaged with political propositions from the Chinese government, also a potential violation of the law. And while the first round of investigations will target entertainers, educators, the military and public servants, Cho has said that private and public enterprises will face investigation next, furthering the scope of this coordinated attempt by the Taiwanese government to, as it says, protect its sovereignty. Andy Xue, Howard Zhang and Reese Ayers in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan has slammed China's prosecution of a Taiwan-based publisher who sold books critical of the Communist Party. Li Yanhe, a Chinese national who's better known by his pen name Fu Ca, has been detained in China for 2 years. Beijing says he was tried on separatism charges in February, but the verdict hasn't been made public. Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council says China has suppressed all information about the trial.
是公开把它当成宣传样板啊，整个审判都是秘密进行，黑箱作业，一般人都不知道他所犯何刑啊，他的证据双方答辩的这个法庭答辩的资讯，外界无从得知。那还有强调他对这个当事人的司法人权，还有辩护人的司法人权的确保，都是谎言。
Taiwan is warning its citizens to be aware of the risks of traveling to China given cases like Li's. Taiwan's military is on high alert after Chinese forces passed close to the country. These maneuvers come in apparent response to new drills announced by Taipei, adding a bit of unwelcome realism to exercises meant to test the country's defense. Jaime Okan reports.
Taiwan's Navy stares down a Chinese destroyer operating around Taiwan. It was one of 9 Chinese ships patrolling the region's waters, just hours after Taiwan started military drills to test its capabilities on Monday. China's Navy regularly operates in these waters, but Taiwan's defense minister says that this time was different.
联合战备举行，历来大概就是1个礼拜差不多就会举行一次嘛。昨天比较特殊，只是说在上午举行一次之后呢，不过他的军舰其实抵近20海里没有离开，然后之后下午他们的这个空军有在进来这样。
Taiwan's defense ministry says a total of 59 Chinese military aircraft and drones were spotted operating around the country between Monday and Tuesday. 43 of the aircraft flew closer and breached the country's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. Taiwan's military deployed its own aircraft in response and released rare images of Chinese drones around the country. The spike in military activity on both sides is prompting debate between Taiwan's two biggest political parties as tensions with China continue to boil.
两岸需要坐下来谈，那怎么样能够谈？这个我觉得考验赖清德政府。
3、4月本来就是中国军演的一个高峰哦，就跟他们8、9月喜欢做这些事情一样哦。中国呢，永远都一定会找一个理由，然后说这是他要做军演的目的。
Taiwan has been trying to boost its defensive capabilities and make sure that its armed forces are ready to react if one of these incursions turns into an actual attack. But with more and more Chinese ships and aircraft spotted around the country, some analysts say that Taiwan may need to reconsider how it's using its limited resources when reacting to these threats.
Now it's not surprising to see aircraft on all sides of the island every single day. I mean, that used to be a huge deal. They've succeeded in altering the status quo. The median line has been erased. They have a near permanent naval presence around the island. I do think that at some point, Taiwan does have to choose because of the budgetary limitations. Okay, are we going to spend our spare part budget on maintaining F-16s that are flying to respond to ADA's incursions, or are we going to spend them for practical training in Hongguang?
Taiwan's largest annual military drills, the Hongguang exercises, are less than 4 months away. And with military hardware already deployed across the country, Taiwan is sticking to its plan and focusing on making sure its soldiers stay alert. Taiwan's rapid response exercises are meant to last until Friday and test how quickly the country can mobilize its military. But with China conducting its own exercises, these drills have become that much more urgent. Eason Chen and Jaime Okan in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's premier has responded to concerns about President Lai Ching-te's call to bring back military tribunals.
我们总统讲一句话，我们就要恢复军事审判，这个不是独裁吗？
当然不是，军事审判，我再说明，它只有针对现役军人的5种军事犯罪：叛乱、力敌、泄密、废止职务以及抗命。军人不能有这5种行为，有这5种行为就是军事审判。
President Lai Ching-te announced several new initiatives last week to address Chinese infiltration of Taiwan. Military tribunals were used to enforce harsher punishments on soldiers who commit crimes that endanger national security, but were abolished a decade ago due to human rights concerns. If the Lai administration follows through with its push for their return, any amendments will have to pass through the opposition-controlled legislature. In response, the opposition Kuomintang announced plans to put forward referendums against martial law and the abolition of the death penalty, which Premier Zhuo also responded to earlier in the day.
只有中国国民党有戒严的经验，也只有中国国民党不知道戒严的痛苦，也没有可能在今天往后有任何戒严的可能。不要在黑暗的房间找这2只不存在的黑猫。
The Kuomintang government had imposed a 38-year-long period of martial law in Taiwan beginning in 1949. Taiwan's government watchdog, the Control Yuan, one of the country's 5 branches of government, says it will take massive budget cuts imposed by the legislature to the top court. Rick Loud reports.
It's a difficult time for Taiwan's government, facing massive budget cuts imposed by Taiwan's legislature in the hands of 2 main opposition parties. They've slashed the budget of this branch of the government, the ombudsman known as the Control Yuan, by 96%. They say it's become a toothless tiger that succumbs to pressure by the ruling party that's lost the trust of the public. But the Control Yuan says that these cuts are crippling its ability to investigate important issues faced by Taiwan society, from road safety to human rights, and that it's going to take these cuts to Taiwan's constitutional court.
整个审查的争议，其实并非是只有朝野之争，而是涉及宪政机关无法依据宪法及法律善尽的这个职责的重大议题。那机关运作几乎形同停摆，那影响人民的权益，还有国家的安全跟国际的信誉。
Taiwan government departments and agencies are facing all sorts of challenges as those budget cuts bite. Taiwan's opposition parties say they want to create a more streamlined and efficient government. But Taiwan's ruling party in the presidential office for a historic third term accuses them of playing party politics and says that it's Taiwan's people who will suffer. Klein Wang and Rick Lowett in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Chinese President Xi Jinping may visit the U.S. for talks in what U.S. President Donald Trump says is the not-too-distant future. China has not responded to Trump's comments, which he made unofficially at a board meeting at a Washington arts theater. Trump says he wants a good relationship with China, but he has also put tariffs on all Chinese imports. U.S. Intelligence Chief Tulsi Gabbard says the U.S. and India are looking to strengthen ties in various areas. Gabbard told Indian media that the U.S. and India would take a central role in taking on challenges posed by China while also maximizing opportunities. Gabbard is in New Delhi to attend the Raisina Dialogue Strategic Affairs Conference and give a keynote speech on Tuesday. Coming up after the break, sex worker turned photographer, how a Japanese industry insider is putting a new lens on the world's oldest profession.
Game on Taiwan. The wait is over. Baseball returns as the CPBL kicks off its new season. The UBA and HBL basketball tournaments are heading to their epic final showdown, where the best teams fight for ultimate victory. And the excitement doesn't stop there. Tour de Taiwan is here, with the world's top cyclists pushing their limits through Taiwan's breathtaking landscapes. Game on Taiwan. The action starts here.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. The United Nations and World Health Organization are warning that the freezing of U.S. foreign aid could soon have dire consequences. U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered foreign assistance stopped for 90 days for a review of whether programs align with his foreign policy. The United Nations says Myanmar is among the countries that stand to suffer, with access to medical care evaporating and famine imminent in parts of the country. The WHO says HIV, measles, tuberculosis, polio, and other diseases could all see a resurgence worldwide as U.S. funding dries up.
9 countries have reported failing procurement and supply chains for TB drugs, jeopardizing the lives of people with TB. Over the past 2 decades, U.S. support for TB services has helped to save almost 80 million lives. Those gains, too, are at risk.
The cuts to U.S. aid are part of a wider government shakeup in Washington as the Trump administration tries to find savings of $1 trillion. Hundreds of people have reportedly been killed in renewed Israeli strikes on Gaza. Gaza's health ministry says at least 330 people have died in the first major bombardment since the start of ceasefire 2 months ago. Israel's military says it is targeting Hamas in Gaza after talks on extending the ceasefire stalled, claiming Hamas is delaying the release of hostages. Hamas accuses Israel of deliberately sabotaging the ceasefire. As the effects of climate change wreak havoc across the globe, many people are already feeling the devastating consequences. As Jonathan Kaplan reports, Mongolia's traditional way of life for hundreds of generations might not exist much longer.
On the Mongolian steppe, livestock herder Zandan Kramsoren tends to what's left of his flock. A year ago, he had over 700 animals, including horses, cows, goats, and sheep. Then winter came.
4 амбултай мал маань хүрээд бололцоод байдаг байсан. Ноднгийн байгалийн давтшгүй хүчин зүйлд их малын хорогдуулсан.
He estimates 60 to 70% of his animals died. None of the horses or cows survive. The long, harsh winter, buried in snow, the grass his animals feed on. They starved and then froze. Zandan Ktamsuren's livestock weren't the only ones. Over 7 million animals are thought to have died in last winter's Dzud, one of the worst in recorded history. Mongolians have lived off the land for centuries. Nomadic herding, once Mongolia's predominant occupation, is still practiced by roughly a third of the country's 3.5 million people. But that is rapidly changing. Nearly half of Mongolians now live in its one major city, capital Ulaanbaatar. Every year, more arrive, seeking opportunities of modern life and refuge from an increasingly difficult pastoral existence. And as the climate continues to change, the trend of urbanization is certain to continue.
Compared to other countries, Mongolia is considered very, very vulnerable to climate change effects. Over the last 80 years, Mongolia's average temperature has reached increased by 2.5 degrees Celsius, so which is at least 3 times than the global average.
The overall warming trend has brought hotter, drier summers and desertification, and longer, snowier winters of mass animal starvation. Past generations of Mongolians relied on a stable climate cycle to survive and prosper. Today, the absence of that stability is upending traditional life for many. How much longer Mongolia's nomadic herders can continue their traditional way of life is anyone's guess. But it is certain that these people will be forced to adapt to survive on a changing planet. Chris Ma and Jonathan Kaplan for TaiwanPlus.
4 more search and rescue dogs are joining the force in Taiwan after passing their qualifying exams. Our reporter Sandy Chi was there for their big moment.
4-year-old Bagel is one proud pooch. After officially being certified as a search and rescue dog in Taiwan, she can now begin the important work of saving lives.
这也代表了一个新的里程碑。像我们的团队在训练的基础上面是会扎得比较厚实，所以当我们的狗狗已经过了这个门槛之后，就代表我们这个狗狗在任何的救灾现场，它都可以有一个基础的搜索作业能力了。Go.
Bagel is one of 4 dogs to pass a rigorous certification exam, organized by the International Search and Rescue Dog Organization. The exam tests dogs on their ability to sniff out people buried in rubble within a certain time. Only about a third of candidates made the cut.
我其实没有想到说这次的考试难度会这么的高。那每一场考试其实它就是一个都是一个未知的情境状况。小狗有办法去克服这些状况的话，就是靠平常基础功的扎实。你要有很有计划的去安排每一个小小的步骤。就算我们今天只是有一个很小的步骤，让它去快速的完成，快速得到奖励，那一点小的东西，对它在正式考试的时候都会有帮助。
Bagel and her 3 classmates bring Taiwan's total number of mission-ready rescue dogs to 56. These dogs play a vital role in search and rescue efforts, sniffing out people who fall foul of Taiwan's many typhoons and earthquakes.
那搜救犬这种东西，它是必备的一个搜救工具，所以台湾不可能没有搜救犬。台湾1年震好几次，那大地震的时候，我们平均台湾5年一次，人家可能几十年才遇到那么一次。
Rescue dogs were first introduced in Taiwan in 1999 after a massive magnitude 7.3 earthquake struck the center of the country, killing over 2,000 people and trapping many others under rubble. One rescue dog handler who came to help at the time was there to judge the competition. He says Taiwan has really improved in the past 25 years.
Definitely successful. I remember my first way to Taiwan. It was 1999. I have been here with my Czech team. I have been here as a dog handler, help your people, and after big earthquake. And you didn't have dogs. And if you compare for today, you did big step.
In disaster relief situations, dog trainers say the key to success is teamwork and getting frontline rescuers and their dogs the resources they need.
那这些人他对灾害现场的了解都已经很够了，那他加上搜救犬这个部分，他能在灾场很妥善的去应用这些技术，他本身的技术叠狗的技术，去执行达成一个团队的任务。
So far, Taiwan has trained up 7 of Asia's 9 highest certified search and rescue dogs.
Come.
Now, with a mix of experienced veterans and new recruits, Taiwan Search and Rescue Force, along with their 4-legged heroes, will continue working, training, and answering the call to save lives whenever disasters strike. Hang Shu and Sanny Chi in Nantou for TaiwanPlus.
Ahead of Taipei Fashion Week, a glimpse at this season's new looks. Taipei Fashion Week will run from March 27th through the 30th. This season's event is centered around the idea of endless fashion, advocating for sustainability within the industry. Designers had that mission in mind when creating their looks.
就是时尚无尽的意思，就是说我们希望时尚也是一个循环，时尚不会只有造成地球的负担，而是每一个在这个过程消费时尚的人也参与了分担地球的责任，让时尚的这件事情本身也是一个具有环保意识、是环境友善，然后对于地球整体的资源是友善的方式。
This year's opening events will be held at Taipei's Songshan Cultural and Creative Park. For centuries, sex workers in Japan have toiled in the country's many red light districts. Now, a photographer from inside the industry is shedding light on the hidden history of the oldest profession. Bryn Thomas reports.
Beniko often finds herself wandering the streets of Yoshiwara District, camera in hand. The fading red light district near Tokyo's tourist hotspot Asakusa, once famous for its high-class courtesans, is now telling a different story. One she's capturing in photos.
負の歴史と言われているような場所なんですけれども、ただそこに生きてきた人たちがいて、で暮らす人々がいる。で、そこで必死に生きてきた人たちがいるんだっていうことを伝えたいですね。
The struggles are something Beniko knows well. She spent 10 years as a sex worker in the neighborhood.
19歳ぐらいからとですね、32歳ぐらいまで風俗店で各地の風俗店で働いていて。
Established during the Edo period in a different location, Yoshiwara was moved to eastern Tokyo after a fire. Although it declined during the Meiji period, interest in the history of Japan's red light districts has grown, sparked by its portrayals in film and anime. Watanabe Go's bookshop caters to these interests.
吉原っていうのは他で唯一の場所なんですよね。で吉原遊郭ができたのが1618年なので、この間の2018年で400年間売春を続けている町。
In contrast to its 16th and 17th century heyday, Yoshiwara is a shell of its former self, with most of the adult industry moving to the nearby, vibrant Kabukicho nightlife district after sex work was outlawed in 1958. Today, most of the area's brothels, like the one Beniko worked in, are operated as bathhouses, or soaplands.
ソープランドっていうのは個室の中で、女性が、男性の体を洗うっていうのが大前提にはなってるんですけど、実態としてはそこで性売春が行われている場所。
By her 30s, years of sex work, seeing up to 10 clients a day, had taken a toll on Beniko both physically and mentally. In extreme pain and wanting to care for her child, she left the profession, got a part-time job, and began learning photography. Now 52, she runs a YouTube channel where she shows her face, a decision which has made her the target of abuse, but also gained her a considerable following.
今自分がなぜ写真を撮っているのかっていうのは過去のことがあるからその自分の時間は取り戻せないけれども風俗を歴史として伝えたいという思いがある。それというのはやはり自分で顔を出してちゃんと話していかないと説得力がないというか伝わらないと思ったということですかね。
Beniko's photo books reveal the hidden back rooms of Japan's red light districts. Through crowdfunding, they've raised over $55,000, far exceeding Beniko's original goal of $7,000. Proof that photography can brighten the corners of a personal history while bringing into focus a complex past. James Lin and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
2 U.S. astronauts who have been stuck in space for 9 months are on their way back to Earth. The pair were only meant to go for 8 days, but issues with their Boeing Starliner spacecraft left them stranded at the International Space Station. A SpaceX capsule will now take them home. They are expected to arrive back on Earth on Tuesday. Thank you for watching Taiwan Plus News. You can visit the Taiwan Plus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we go to Dublin, Ireland for the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which drew around 500,000 attendees this year. I'm Leslie Liao. Take care and see you next time.